Good evening and welcome to Annii Gets Healthy here on CHMR. I want to start out by saying that I would love it if you had an issue that you wanted me to talk about on the show. The best way to reach me as of right now is Instagram at Annii Gets Healthy. That's ANNII Gets Healthy. So yeah, send me a PM there or just comment. I might post something on there about this show. Because basically, Annii Gets Healthy is an Instagram where I post food and workout stuff, and probably more down the road, as I really do want to explore health and wellness as something that I turn into a career. But I want to start the show by throwing out the disclaimer that the topics discussed on this show are not intended to replace any conversation between you and a physician. I am not a trained medical professional, nor am I a personal trainer or a dietitian. What I am is someone who, through many years of trial and error, discovered a lifestyle that works for me. I used to spend a lot of time wondering how this time was different and how I really lost weight. So, talk about the losing weight part. That's a big reason why I came up with this show, is that I used to be incredibly overweight. I'm 5'3", and for a lady of 5'3" to clock in at 286 pounds, it was distressing for me. I was overweight most of my life. I personally didn't feel good about it. I know there are a lot of people who their weight doesn't bother them, but for me it always did. And so I definitely had a big turning point in my life when I lost it. So since I've lost the weight, I have listened to the wise words of trainers, physicians, and nutritionists who have given me a lot of insight on how my own actions through growing up caused my own obesity. And then, through other actions, especially the ones in the past 1.5 to 2 years, have reversed that obesity. Tonight's episode is called My Weight, a Deeply Personal Tale. Once again, this is the first episode of the show, and I want to provide a proper introduction, and I wasn't sure that I was going to do it like this at first, but I'm going to get vulnerable. This show is, it's going to get vulnerable. But anyways, with all that being said, it's 7:12 right now, and before I dive into all this, I think it's really important that we take our very first break of the show. So when we come back, we are going to jump right into the tale. I will introduce myself and give you the full shabam, but we've got some very important messages up first, and then we will be right back. Stay tuned. Annii Gets Healthy will return in just a moment. Welcome back to Annii Gets Healthy here on CHMR. So I was just giving you the full disclaimer and my apologies for being awkward in this first episode, as I'm still trying to find my footing going from a music show to a talk show. So if you're just tuning in, that's all I've been talking about. So let's begin with the basics. As I said right before the break, the name of this episode is My Weight, a Deeply Personal Tale. So once again, if you're not here to listen to really, intimate stuff, maybe not the episode for you. And I will say, starting out, that there is some mild reference to mental illness or substance abuse in here. Certainly nothing glorifying either of those things. So, once again, if those are topics that make you feel sensitive, once again, do keep that in mind. So let's begin with the basics. My name is Annii, a former and present MUN student with 4 years of study at the College of the North Atlantic in between. I was in the field of information technology for several years. I had very mixed feelings about this career and have recently been shifting away from it. However, prior to a year ago, I really didn't think I could be good at anything else, and I hadn't considered my newfound passion for wellness as a possible career path, that's for sure. I have had a few ideas now on how I can spend my life helping other people feel good, regardless of their age or weight or whatever ability level they may be at. Thus my being back at MUN and inevitably ending the old show and starting a new chapter. So once again, we're here to talk about weight. How did obesity happen in my case? Surely one does not wake up one day, step on the scale, and weigh 286 pounds at 5'3". So what happened? I didn't get there overnight. Well, when I was a child, I was what my mother would call pleasantly plump. I always knew there was something different about me, and by the time I was 8 years old, I knew what it was called: fat. I would be informed that I was fat by my peers, and began to notice that people treated me a little bit differently than others, and it sucked. That's for sure. But by the time that I was in junior high, despite being not remarkably large, I felt that I was incredibly obese past the point of no return. The media and my own paranoia just giving me messages that you are too big and you can never change this, and go ahead and just do whatever you want to yourself because it's too late anyways. So my mental health definitely suffered as I grew older, partially because of good old genetics. Sometimes you've got a screw loose here and there that's waiting to come out eventually, but it certainly was made no better by the complete lack of self-esteem that I had. In fact, I began to develop a deep self-loathing. As I pushed through my teens, I developed a sturdy coping mechanism in humor, and made my own group of friends who seemed to like me for various reasons, that being included, despite my constant feeling of being weird, so to speak. But with false confidence comes the need for more coping mechanisms to keep up the ruse that everything is all right. I'll spare the gory details, but I found many things in my life that were just fine at filling that void. What never changed in my life was that longest-lasting toxic relationship I'd ever been in. That's right, that's my relationship with food. I grew up on crinkle-cut fries, chicken nuggets, pizza pockets, Lunchables, and Kraft Dinner. The early 90s were a great time for snacks too. Fruit by the foot, Dunkaroos, Fun Dip, Ring Pops, cheese strings, Scooby Snacks, Cosmic Brownies, endless cereals advertised 24/7 on YTV. My parents assured me that I was a very fussy eater when I was young, and that it was too hard to get me to eat vegetables, so they stopped trying. Hey, kids can be really hard to deal with, so I can't fault them too much for not wanting to push harder. Believe me, I really hated the idea of eating, well, veggies, anything, really. Anything green disgusted me. Any other vegetable just didn't appeal to me. Plenty of non-vegetable foods that, I love now just gross me out for no reason. Once again, kids have a weird palate, but I was a really tricky kid to feed. In fact, all I desired was processed and frozen boxed foods. And believe me, with busy professional parents in Newfoundland, a plate of chicken nuggets with a few green peas on the side is an ideal supper. My father retired in 1998 when I was still pretty young, so from that point on, he typically brought me home to eat at lunchtime. By that time, I was already becoming slightly anxious of my peers around me anyway, so I found the time at home to be a relief. That relief for me came in the form of watching Power Rangers while eating a mini pizza in my living room. So, as I aged, those trips home for lunch became therapeutic for me, an escape from a place where I felt alone, annoying, and unworthy of friendship. At age 10, I knew that I was very sad. A year later, I told my parents I was depressed. Of course, this isn't anything that a parent is properly equipped to deal with, especially, older parents here in Newfoundland, but they did the best they could, reassuring me that I was not and that I was merely having a bad day. Needless to say, all of this negative emotion really snowballed with time, and my emerging adolescence began a transformation from a science-loving nerd who just wanted a chocolate bar to cheer them up to a confused, melodramatic, thrill-seeking, mentally unstable teen desperate for a proper human connection. I'd managed, though, on one little winning note, to come out of the closet after a few years of panicking alone, which is definite plus. But around that point, I began to unwind a little bit. Hey, there's nothing wrong with trying to embrace who you are, right? And why not have fun? There are lots of ways to make yourself happy, and you're only a kid once, you might as well have a bit of fun, let your hair down. Of course, I picked every single wrong way of doing that. On another note, I graduated high school at about 210 pounds with the seeds of substance abuse planted in my developing brain. In other words, I was off for university and destined for success. I will say, the good thing about university was meeting new friends who could see me as a clean slate. All the embarrassing occurrences of my childhood ceased to matter when in a larger university. I seemed to be good at making friends. Once again, my coping mechanism of dark humor and often self-deprecating humor tended to work well. In fact, I made a couple friends when I first started going to MUN that I'm still friends with to this day. Of course, I was definitely a victim of the freshman 15, more like the freshman 40 or 50 for me. I loved how accessible fast food was in the university center, and I ate there often. I recall just sitting there looking at the cars driving beneath me as I ate yet another double cheeseburger or poutine. But I took great relaxation in sitting there and watching the cars go by. And eventually I walked into these doors here and I started a show, and that really helped me to break down the barriers that I had about, once again, feeling annoying and like nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. I was a quiet person for a few years before that, and I'm definitely not a quiet person now. Just ask virtually anybody that I know. They can't get me to stop talking, even when this microphone is turned off. I will deviate here yet again, though, to urge any first-year students listening to this, please do not be swept off your feet by the easy access to the delicious smelling and tasting foods you walk past every day. Obviously, not going to name names, but please, 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 just bring a sandwich if you can. Believe me, your heart and wallet will thank you and thank me. Once again, I was going to play a song here, but that's not a thing, so we're just going to keep on going. I'm looking at the time, and we're still good. We don't need to take another break yet, so let's just push on with the show. I was just talking about being an awkward kid, overweight kid, starting off at MUN, gaining even more weight at MUN. But to be honest with you, at this stage in my life, I was not mentally prepared for the university life. So I left MUN in 2011 and spent several months moping at home before I started a new program in the field of information technology the following fall. My on-again, off-again issues with substance abuse were well hidden from most people close to me, but many people knew that I was quite depressed. But those issues with substance abuse, they were like a boomerang. They just kept on coming back, and I would feel fine for a little while, and I just didn't have positive ways to cope with my emotions. It was either that or food, a few other things. I would go periods without talking to anybody, and then periods where I didn't want to be alone at all. But once I started up at the college, things were mostly up. I was there for 4 years. Of course, in terms of things that were on the up, one of those things was also my weight. But in my last year of college, I did take one summer off to live however I wanted. Oh boy. I cannot even begin to explain the things I did to my body in this time, but my heart is still ticking, so there is some relative happy ending there. Speaking of heart ticking, though, at the end of the summer of 2014, after this fun summer of do what you want, where, believe me, I was doing no cooking, I was not living home, there was a lot of fast food involved, believe you me, I went to the doctor. And I had to get routine blood work, and I hate blood work. I still do to this day, not as bad as I used to. But I really badly needed blood work at the time, and I went to my family doctor and got some shocking news. I had high cholesterol at 22. What do I even do? Meds? Am I going to have a heart attack by 30? Trust me, I already knew I wasn't healthy, but seriously? High cholesterol? I hopped on the scale, and the numbers staring back at me were 286. So close to that 300 mark that terrified me. Terrified my 5'3" frame. In a panic, I took my doctor's advice and cut back on the red meat and fast food. I started buying these different frozen dinners that had buzzwords like healthy and 33% less fat, reduced sodium, cholesterol-free on the boxes, so into my cart they went. It kind of worked, too. I had lost 20 pounds and got a few compliments on how your face looks slimmer, or something with your eyes, you must be doing well. To be fair, I had definitely been doing worse in previous parts of my life. Some positive changes were on the horizon as well, but some dramatic turns took place in my life as well. The Christmas before returning to school for my final semester of college, I received two devastating pieces of news. A former partner and best friend of mine had passed away unexpectedly out of province, which broke my heart and continues to break my heart to this day, to be quite honest with you. And about a week later, I learned, and this is like right before Christmas, a week later I learned that my father's cancer, which had been in remission for almost 7 years, had returned, this time in his lung. Well, that sucks. A lot. So I quit smoking and actually stayed quit this time. Even though I was obese, my walking definitely improved, believe me. I used to have so much difficulty walking more than a few minutes. It was very embarrassing in social situations, like having to walk 20 minutes with friends to get from A to B when driving was not an option. And don't even get me started on hikes. But the cigarettes left for good. Hey, my